Adinatamrandasya Dhananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravo Binidustam Sarvabhutam Munimanatoshmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayatu Dhiraye. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasarashishi Manshila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasarashishi Manshila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So, continuing our discussion on the first two cantos of the Bhagavatam, and we've been describing the thread or the current of Bhakti Devi. We discussed initially how Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has understood or explained that Bhakti Devi is the Satyam Paramadimahi. He gives 5 alternatives: Brahman, Narayan, Madhurya Ras, Radha Krishna, and Bhakti Devi. So Bhakti Devi is the Satyam, that absolute truth that we are worshipping, and we have been perceiving practically throughout every single chapter how Bhakti Devi is prominent. And we've discussed through this first canto. So I'll just reiterate briefly. The first chapter are the questions by the sages of Naimisharanya, and then the Sutta Goswami is answering, and immediately he's giving an impression in the third chapter to the sages of the personal form of the Lord, in the form of the Virata Rupa. He describes, as well as the 3 Purusha avatars. This is in the third chapter. So straight away, it's not an impersonal path. And this Virata Rupa, as we talked before, is actually described 3 times in the first 2 cantos. And this is to purify any impersonal conception. And we talked about the state of consciousness of the sages at Naimisharanya, that actually they were of a sakam nature. Their desire was swaga, or liberation. This is how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes it. It wasn't exclusively for bhakti, and we've been perceiving how the sages, yesterday we talked about, in that second chapter of the second canto, the sages' enthusiasm to hear topics relating to Krishna. So from the third chapter, Sutta Goswami describes incarnations, scheduled incarnations, and then 4, 5, and 6 is the remarkable dialogue between Narad and Vyas. And this is exemplifying Guru Tattva, that nothing can manifest in the heart of the sadhak without the mercy of Guru. This is entirely the process. If we study and read, if we perform so much sadhan bhajan, if we chant so many mantras, but without the light coming from that person, the light and mercy from that individual, from that spiritual world directly, then nothing will really transpire in the heart of the sadhak significantly. Gyan may arise, or Sukriti may arise, etc. The Sukriti will be there to give us an opportunity to have that higher association. But without the ultimate mercy of Guru, then nothing can, like in this 3 chapters, 4, 5, and 6, we see Vyasadeva's despondency. How he's presented so much, but he's unhappy. Unhappy, why? Because this quality of Bhakti Devi has not been directly imparted through his teachings, principally Gyan Kand and Karma Kand. And being enlightened by Narad, then he perceives in trance, in Bhasya, the entirety of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in the 7th chapter, it's described about Ashvatam. And we discuss the remarkable way that this Bhagavatam is manifesting, how the story of the Mahabharata comes in this 7th chapter. And it's very captivating to the mind to hear this pastime of Ashvatam murdering those 5 sons of Draupadi. And then we have the 8th chapter. Who remembers what the 8th chapter was? I forgot. 8th chapter, I think, is Queen Kunti's prayers. Queen Kunti's prayers, again, demonstrating bhakti. So the current of bhakti, the consistency of the development of bhakti. So what is the meaning of bhakti? Bhakti means devotion. Devotion. This, we should meditate sometimes. Personally, I like to think of that word devotion more than bhakti. Bhakti is like a foreign word for me. Of course, it's become so familiar over the years, but nevertheless, devotion sort of resonates more clearly in my consciousness when I'm thinking of devotion.
After so many years.
Yeah, I'm not so smart as you, Richard. I'm very dull. I'm more like a stone. And when I hear the mood devotion, it moves me very deeply when I consider that mood of devotion. If we keep saying bhakti, bhakti, yes, we understand it's devotion, but the actual dynamic of devotion itself. Am I doing this activity filled with devotion? Means an object. So that object has been presented in the 3rd chapter in the Virata Rupa form, and also the descriptions of the Purushas. So immediately, as we just said, that impersonal conception is purified. And then after those prayers, then it's the dialogue with Bhishmadev on the battle of Kurukshetra again. And then it's the departure of Krishna from Hastinapur and his entrance into Dwarka in 2 chapters. And this is showing the sweetness of his personal relationships. This is God himself with his relationships and his family members exchanging in these 2 chapters. And then it's the departure of Krishna. Then it's the birth of Parikshit, and then it's the departure of Dhritarashtra is the next chapter, and then after that is the departure of Krishna, then after that is the departure of the Pandavas. So we're seeing a sequence here. And then the last 4 verses of the 19 chapters of the 1st canto are describing Maharaj Parikshit's glories and his ability to withhold the influence of Kali from men's consciousnesses. We described that yesterday, how Kali enters through the consciousness of the individual and attracts him to these sinful activities. So now we're going through the 2nd canto, and initially, again, the 1st chapter is described as the first step in God realization. And again, we get a description of the Virata Rupa. So again, the personal aspect of Krishna is being substantiated. So we have to see this very clearly. What are these masters doing who have given us this Bhagavatam? How are they arranging it for our purification? And then in the 2nd chapter that we discussed quite extensively yesterday, the Lord in the heart, Paramatma realization. So, and this was about the different sages also in the material universe going up to Satyaloka, etc. And then beautiful descriptions about detachment in this chapter, talking about the torn clothes on the side of the road. We have hands to eat with, their earthly flats to lie on, we have our arms to rest as pillows, etc. So it's a current, it's a process that he's unfolding. And then this 3rd chapter that we also discussed yesterday was now pure devotional service. What is that pure devotional service? What is that change in heart? And the change in heart we described yesterday is actually taking place in the sages at Naimisharanya, because they glorify in so many verses, in actually 11 verses, they glorify these topics to Sutta Goswami. So here there's this mood of changing their perspective, changing their hearts in this third chapter. And now this fourth chapter that we've reached today in Bhaktivedanta Swami's commentary, he calls it the process of creation. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he calls it the prayers by Sukadeva Goswami, because actually this whole fourth chapter is amazing in its sense of devotion. The example of Sukadeva Goswami demonstrating his devotion to Krishna. He's been asked these questions. First of all, the sages ask Sutta, and then Sutta begins to refer to the conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami. And then Maharaj Parikshit, he is asking these same questions about the process of creation. How did this whole universe manifest? Where has the jiva come from? Who is that Supreme Lord? So these are the most pertinent questions in existence. And anywhere outside of the Bhagavatam is just practically speculative answers. They don't actually have the answers because they're trying, it's called the ascending process. They're trying to use their speculative powers to figure it out from here, how to understand to go up. But actually the process is how to bow the head and receive the mercy from the transcendental world to understand this world. This is the actual process, to this descending process. This is the solution. This is how we can understand this phenomena of this world. No other way. Scientists, etc., crack their heads on the crust of the universe. They can't go beyond anything, not even the universe. They don't even know really the difference between the distances between the sun and the moon. They can't calculate so many things because they have imperfect senses. And imperfect senses, they can't absorb what is the perfection of life. But this knowledge, when it's descending, is coming in its most perfect form from the transcendental world. It's called Siddha. Siddha means perfection. It's coming from that realm. So this is why we have to go through this channel. So this channel is being opened and explained through the development of these cantos. There's 12 cantos. I'm explaining this to Mike here from Canada. He's just arrived. So there's 12 cantos, and we're going through gradually, at least seeing the inception of this knowledge, the beginning of this knowledge. So now I'm going to start at the beginning here, and this is chapter 4. Because perhaps if we've read this for many, many years, we may not have become so familiar with the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who takes the whole explanations and processes to another level. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was trying to encourage faith in these topics. Of course, he was giving so much powerful realization. But principally he was speaking for those who had come from a very fallen place. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is not addressing his commentary on that level. He's writing in Sanskrit for a start. So it's on a different level. So I'll just read through here and we'll unfold this fourth chapter called Sukadeva glorifies the Lord. So Sukadeva Goswami is about to be asked these questions, and in this chapter he doesn't answer any of the questions. all he does is glorify Krishna for about 12 or 14 verses in preparation to having the ability and the adhikar to receive the answers to these questions. He's not the one giving the answers. This is what he makes it very clear. Similarly, when Narad in the next chapter, 5th chapter, is asking Lord Brahma makes it very clear, I'm not the one with the answers. Sri Krishna is the one with the answers. So this mood of giving acknowledgement to the person from where that knowledge has come from. In this material world, we're always very anxious to take center stage. And oh, it was me that did it, etc. This is our obstacle, this is our defect to actually seeing the Supreme Lord, because we get confused, we get obstructed with our own I, me and mine. We call it the false ego. But transcendentalists, they're purified of that. So immediately they give honor to where that current has come from. And that, hearing these prayers, enlivens the heart of the sadhak so much. When a great devotee, like Sukadeva for example, is glorifying the Lord, the devotee's ears become drenched in nectar, hearing these beautiful prayers of glorification by such a qualified personality. Sukadeva Goswami, as we've discussed, was the parrot of Sri Radha. So his qualification is unbelievable. So now at the beginning, the first verse, Sutta Goswami, he's addressing the sages who, in the previous verse, have experienced this change in heart. That's the title of the chapter, Change in Heart. And it's the sages directly who have changed their hearts. Of course, when we're first reading it, we're thinking, oh yes, there was even a record years ago called Change in Heart. We're thinking it's all about me. But actually, it's showing the sages here, who were yogis or are yogis on a mystic path, or a path on their way to Swaga. This was explained also in the previous verse, previous chapter. So Sutta Goswami now is speaking, addressing them. Sutta said, hearing the words of Sukadeva Goswami, by which he could discern the truth about the soul, Parikshit concentrated his mind, which was always thinking of Krishna. This is giving knowledge, fundamental knowledge of the soul. We want that knowledge of the soul, and the soul in his relationship, of course, with Maya and Krishna. This is called Sambandha Gyan. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a brief description, a summary of this chapter that's about to unfold. He says in the 4th chapter, Sukadeva, being asked by Parikshit, describes the creation through the conversation of Brahma and Narad, after offering respects to his guru, Krishna. And the next translation, the next verse, he completely gave up attachment. This is Parikshit Maharaj. He completely gave up attachment to body, wife, sons, house, animals, wealth, friends, kingdom, which is constant and strong in others. So this again is glorification of Parikshit Maharaj. Sutta Goswami is describing the glories of Parikshit. He's going to be the listener and the inquirer to Sukadeva Goswami. So all these emotional exchanges, it's on a different level from the intellect. It's not simply just glorifying externally, but internally. What are their feelings? What is the mood between these amazing personalities? O great devotees, the intelligent Parikshit, full of faith in hearing Krishna's activities, asked this question to Sukadeva, which you have asked me. So now he's referring to their questions that they've asked him about the creation. The sages at Naimisharanya, they inquired from Sutta Goswami about the creation. And Sutta Goswami is about to reiterate the conversation between Parikshit and Sukadeva. So the next verse, knowing his impending death, giving up all actions of dharma, artha and karma, he became firmly fixed in prema to Krishna. in praying to Krishna. This is the translation. The next verse. Oh, the king said, Parikshit said, O sinless Brahmana, when you, full of knowledge, speak topics of the Lord, my ignorance is destroyed. These words are fitting. So this is the quality of a Mahabhagavat, that by hearing his words, all of our misgivings are completely purified. All the little niggles, so to speak, on the fringes of our consciousnesses become completely blown away in the association of that Mahabhagavat. This is always the experience of those sadhaks who sit in that assembly, listening attentively to the Mahabhagavat. Parikshit again is speaking. Again, I desire to know how the Lord, by his energy, creates this universe which is hard to meditate on by even the Devas. So the Devas, they also don't understand the extent of Krishna's potencies, like we see the typical example of Indra. Even though Indra came to Govardhan to beg forgiveness for showering and inundating it, just a few weeks later he refused to give Krishna a parijat flower. Even so, Krishna just uprooted the whole tree. I mean, how quickly do they become covered? And this is the king of the Devas. So what to speak of the other Devas? And we've understood also through the commentaries that the spiritual master of the Devas, Brihaspati, he's Brahman realized. This means that he's not realized the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So this is the spiritual master of the Devas. So what is their level of consciousness? Of course, they are the sevaks of the Lord in this world, ordaining everything and should be offered nothing but respect. But as far as what this verse is saying, that not even they can understand Krishna. So we have some insight into the degree of their knowledge. So now we come to the 8th verse of this 4th chapter. I desire to know how the Lord maintains and then destroys the universe again. By which Shaktis does this possessor of many Shaktis, the Supreme Person, sport with Maya and create the elements, and then employing the Devatas, create the bodies of the living entities. O Brahmana, the activities of the Lord, performer of astonishing activities, certainly appear hard to understand for even the wise. So Parikshit Maharaj is very enthusiastic to understand the Lord, and he knows that Sukadeva Goswami does. So he's presenting all his questions very humbly and giving all honor to Sukadeva. And this is like giving Sukadeva the opportunity to demonstrate his empowerment to speak these transcendental words directly. Just as the Lord, again this is the translation, just as the Lord, while performing activities of creation and destruction, supports the modes of nature all at once as one Purush, he also supports the modes through many forms of Devatas. Does he do this gradually in sequence? He wants to know the details. If these sort of topics can't be clearly explained, then there's probably some fault there. But because all these remarkable topics can be explained explicitly, totally, fully, there's no question in existence that can't be answered, actually, through this Bhagavatam. Nothing is vague, nothing is wishy-washy. If we ever visit any other spiritual school without this Vedic link, without this link of pure bhakti, then they just don't have the answers for so many pertinent questions at all. They don't even want to know the answers, because knowing the answers takes you out of ignorance. And once you're out of ignorance, then you feel some responsibility as a human being towards our soul's unfoldment of awareness in the world. You understand? If we accept this knowledge. So, now this is text 10. Please speak these topics about which I am doubtful. You are expert in discerning the truth in the scriptures, just as Krishna himself knows. You have realized Krishna. And in his commentary, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes a very beautiful verse. He said, "What do the Vedas instruct as action? What is the final meaning of the Vedas? What alternatives do the Vedas raise? No one except me or my dear devotees know the intended meaning of the Vedas." In other words, it's obscured to that person who's not devotional. The thread, again, going back to the beginning, is devotion, is bhakti. This thread, this key to understanding everything. If we have that sense and mood of submissive devotion, we have to really go into this conception of devotion, try to understand this aspect. Okay, text 11. Sutta Goswami said, being thus requested by the king to speak about the qualities of Krishna, Sukadeva, remembering the Lord of the senses, prepared to answer. Text 12. Sukadeva said, I offer now. Sukadeva has been asked all these profound questions, and for the rest of the chapter, he's just going to be begging for the mercy from Krishna in so many beautiful prayers of devotion himself. So he's demonstrating the nature of a pure bhakta. Immediately you want to be on your knees and praying to Krishna. It's not that, oh, straight away I want to be sort of lording it over and passing out all the information, etc. No, it's like in Jaivadharma also, whenever Babaji's asked a question, he takes shelter of Gauranga Mahaprabhu before he asks a specific question. So this dynamic is very, very important to appreciate and honor and realize in these personalities. Sukadeva Goswami said, I offer my respects to the Supreme Person Krishna, whose powerful expansion is Mahavishnu, performing pastimes of creation, maintenance and destruction of the universe, through accepting the three modes of nature, whose second and third expansions act as the inner soul of the universe and the jivas, who can be realized by the path of bhakti, but cannot be realized by other paths. So that's just what I was saying. We can't realize this except by devotion, and here is Sukadeva Goswami himself demonstrating that powerful mood of devotion directly. Words sometimes we say are cheap, but the activities and actions of men, they are what make impressions. We were talking about Gurudev yesterday, how when we are in his presence, we see directly how the Mahabhagavat acts. It's not simply just in his words, but it's how he looks at us, how he walks, how he eats, how he does everything that is making an indelible impression in the consciousness. So this is what this is saying, but cannot be realized by other paths. Now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that in his commentary that now Sukadeva Goswami is going to offer respects in 13 verses, right to the end of the chapter. What we're trying to do here, you weren't here in the beginning, so we're trying to get the flow of the Bhagavatam. And I described yesterday how people like Jiva Goswami, personalities like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when you read their sandarbhas or their commentaries, it's as if they have the Bhagavatam in their hand. They're just running up and down all of the different chapters, all of the different conceptions. They have it there. So we also can enter into that conception of having the Bhagavatam at our fingertips. It doesn't have to be so distant and vast if we just enter into it. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur many times describes the numbers of verses that are discussing this point. It's like there's a whole list, if anybody at any time wants it. It's fascinating. He goes through every single chapter of the Bhagavatam, describing who is speaking to who for how many chapters. For example, in the third canto, Vidura is speaking to Uddhava for 4 chapters, and then Sarga and Visarga, the creation and sub-creation, is spoken for 8 chapters, and then the story of Varaha is spoken for 7 chapters, and then the summary of the sub-creation, Visarga, is spoken for 1 chapter, and then Kapila Dev is spoken for 4 chapters, and then his teachings are spoken for 9 chapters. So he delineates it like we are doing now. We're not entering into so significantly the topics, but we're seeing the thread. We're trying to see its process, to give us more familiarity with it, to give it, see its flow and continuity. What is it?
Continuity.
Huh?
Continuity.
Continuity, yes. It's got an accent on the O. Continuity. Now, while Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments again that while Sutta Goswami is reiterating these prayers of devotion, he has in mind the sages sitting in front of him who are like yogis and mystics and even karmis, it's described, because they want Swagaloka. So for their benefit, he's quoting these prayers of Sukadeva Goswami to show the elevated nature of the pure devotee, that he lives in devotion, he lives in prayer. His whole life, that breath of devotion we discussed in the first day, it's like a physical thing. There must have been a time in all of our lives when we experienced something of that when we were trying to genuinely, with all our heart, mind and soul, please Guru and please Krishna through our enlightened consciousnesses, not through sentiment or speculation. This is what the Bhagavatam is for, is to purify that disease. The next verse, again I offer respects to you, the destroyer of suffering of the devotees and giver of liberation to the demons, the form of Shuddha Sattva, the shelter of those with the mood of the Paramahamsas, the giver of Brahman to the Bhakti Mishra Gyanis, and Prem to the pure devotees. So don't think, as we discussed before, that because this is not sitting in the 10th canto yet, that its mood is devoid of Prem. Actually, in one of these commentaries very soon, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur all of a sudden starts talking about Govardhan Leela. Like right in the middle of this kind of heavy conversation about the Mahapurushas, he suddenly brings in Govardhan Leela and Rasa Tattva. It's never away from his consciousness. So don't feel that we're denying ourselves the sweetness of Madhurya here in these early chapters. The second chapter, second canto, I was saying yesterday, I've always felt was very heavy. It's very packed with the description of creation, etc. The Purusha Shukta prayers. The Chatushloki is also in this canto, but it's a very grave canto. Like in the other cantos, there's far more leelas. The leela of Kadama Muni, of Varaha, etc., Dhruva, Prachinabhari, Ajamil, Chitraketu, Prahlad, Ambarish, the demigods and the demons fighting. All these pastimes are in the other cantos, but in this canto there's not so many leelas or pastimes. It's quite intense topics, and yet Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur sees it with such rasa. I continually offer respects to you, son of Vasudeva of the Yadus, who remain forever distant from the non-devotees, who are the enjoyers in your spiritual abode in Mathura and Braj with your devotees. Oh, yes. Did you understand what I said? No. Okay. I continually offer respects to you, son of Vasudeva of the Yadus, who remain forever distant from the non-devotees. Would be better for a full stop there. Actually, in this translation, Bhanu Swami needs an editor like anything. His shocking. Every single verse and translation is probably got a Spanish person trying to edit or something. English, it's really not good at all. I was thinking to offer my services sometime. Forever distant from the non-devotees. You, who are the enjoyer of your spiritual abode in Mathura and Braj with your devotees, displaying powers that are unequaled and unsurpassed. Now, this commentary is very beautiful. He's saying, you are filled with power and sweetness. Continually I offer respects by you. He's mentioning in this translation about the Dham of Mathura. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says, what type of Dham is that? It is the very form of Brahman. And then there's a quote, and then he's saying, in the center is the town of the cowherd Krishna, which is directly Brahman. And then there's a word here, Radhasha, indicates his power, and Rasa indicates his sweetness. So when we come into these commentaries, we can see his reminding us of Madhurya. I offer continual respects to the Lord with all auspicious qualities, whose glorification, remembrance, deity form, topics, and worship immediately destroy the impurities of man. He goes on, I offer repeated respects to the Lord and all auspicious qualities. By worshipping his feet, the Jnanis destroy the attachments of this world and the next, which reside in the heart, and attain their spiritual goal of Brahman without fatigue. So now he's addressing the yogis again, but at the same time, he's putting prominence on devotional service. I offer continual respects to the Lord, full of auspicious qualities. Without worshipping him, the Jnanis, Karmis, specialized Karmis, yogis, scholars of the Vedas, and followers of proper conduct cannot attain any benefit. So without the ingredient, we know, in any activity of devotion, then I remember when I used to work more with the publishing teams, and Gurudev used to say that if you're arguing amongst each other, then your devotion is very minimal. There's no real bhakti in there if you're seeing discrepancies in each other. This is not the path of bhakti. The idea is to work collectively, if it's a collective project, in glorification of that scripture. And that means cooperate, and that means showing the ornamental qualities of a Vaishnava, which are always tolerance, humility, and patience. So in this respect, he's describing like this, that none of these types of persons can attain the summum bonum without the thread of bhakti. So again, this is for the sages. The sages are not versed in bhakti yet. They're becoming very much influenced by the presence of Sutta Goswami. It's evolving. This change of heart was the previous chapter. So it hasn't fully blossomed. And it's like for us also, it's not fully blossomed yet. So it's unfolding. I offer respects to the Lord of inconceivable power. Then there's a whole list of all these different tribal personalities in the Western world predominantly, and some in India. But on my phone here, it doesn't have the diacritics, so it's all a bit muddled. I wouldn't be able to speak it without, I don't know how to say because the diacritics are not there. It's just a squiggle. So I can't pronounce all those words. Oh, but they're all here, if you want to hear. Actually, Prabhupada in this commentary gives a very interesting commentary if you want to hear. I'm trying to go quite quickly. I wasn't delving into it. But in this particular verse, it's quite interesting. Prabhupada gives a 4-page commentary on describing these different personalities. There's the Kritas, the Hunas, the Andaras, the Pulindas, the Palakshas, the Adira, the Shambhu, the Yavanas, members of the Kasha race, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Due to his being the supreme power, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances to him. So now it's saying that the Lord's potency is so powerful that even these persons who are born in a very sinful body, and this is also what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes here. He said, even the condemned sinners, by just a trace of bhakti, become successful. Those born in the tribes mentioned are considered sinful by birth. So it's a sinful birth to take birth outside of a Brahmana family, or outside of a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Sudra in Bharatvash. I mean, it's the result of our previous karmas that we've landed in that place. But he said this doesn't make the slightest bit of difference as far as bhakti. In other words, you can come from a dharmic place, or you can come from an adharmic place to the path of bhakti. So we should know this fully. It's the essence, the thread, the breath of bhakti, which is the principle, not the birth. And this birth can be very quickly purified. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. He says that those born in the tribes mentioned are considered sinful by birth. Others are sinful by actions. They all become purified. Those who surrender to the devotees, accepting those devotees as gurus, become purified. Just by taking shelter of the proper guru, sins by birth or action become purified. This indicates that bhakti destroys the parabdha and aparabdha karmas. The low birth is the cause of impurity for the persons mentioned. The present experience of low birth is the parabdha pap, or parabdha karma. They are purified. If they are purified, their bad birth must be destroyed. If their bad birth has been destroyed, their parabdha karmas must have also been destroyed. When they are called by these names that I've just mentioned here, it should be understood to be for practical purposes. It is not their spiritual designation, for it is forbidden to identify devotees by their birth. It is an offense to see the deity form as stone, to see Guru as an ordinary man, and to see the Vaishnava according to his birth. The rule is that though they have had low birth, they should be taught bhakti. And then there's another verse that he quotes in his commentary. Persons devoid of devotee association, who cannot appreciate glorification of the Lord, women and Shudras, deserve your mercy. So this is the remarkable, merciful aspect of the Lord. Then the next translation. He alone is the Supreme Lord. He is worshipped as the Atma by the Jnanis and Yogis. He is to be worshipped by the knowers of the Vedas, the followers of Dharma, and the performers of austerities. May the Lord, whose qualities cannot be known even by those free of deceit, such as Lord Brahma and Shiva, be merciful to me. Now again, it's emphasizing this current of bhakti. This is our meditation. This is our hope, that Bhakti Devi will flourish quickly in my heart from reading through these pages of the Bhagavatam. This is the purpose. And what is Bhakti Devi? Bhakti Devi is that devotion to the Supreme Lord that Sukadeva Goswami himself is proclaiming through these verses. He's demonstrating his own devotion. Otherwise, how is he going to answer Parikshit Maharaj's phenomenal, amazing questions about the universe, the soul, creation, etc., unless he's getting the mercy of the Lord?
Maybe we can understand more. Maybe we can understand more if we think that Bhakti Devi is Radharani herself. Maybe it's better. I don't know. Maybe
She's saying maybe we can understand more when we understand
the
manifestation of Sri Radha herself. Yes, of course, that's the personal aspect of Bhakti Devi, that devotion, Aradhanam, to Sri Krishna. And we already have appreciated so much of that. But we're trying to reach that place through the staircase that Sukadeva Goswami and Sutta Goswami have delivered to us through this Bhagavatam. Of course, Sri Radha is the doorway to understand this, but we've been given so many directives to sink into this Bhagavatam. And what I'm trying to do is to see that conclusion throughout. Bhakti Devi, yes, of course, is Sri Radha personified in her seva to pleasing Krishna and the gopis in principle. We talked yesterday quite a bit about that, about the gopis are the highest estimation of affection and service to Krishna. So we are in that path, but still just trying to understand this sequence almost in a mechanical way, in some sense. How is this unfolding? How to capture this Bhagavatam with great affection that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur possesses, that Bhaktivedanta Swami possessed, that Srila Gurudev possessed. Gurudev wrote so many commentaries on this Bhagavatam also. So how to get that devotion to this Bhagavatam, to appreciate in all of its sequences leading to Sri Radha. No, it's nice that you mentioned Radha. Any mention of Radha is wonderful.
No. It's a tendency just to forget.
No. So the next verse. Is it okay for you to hear these translations? It's not boring or anything? I know it's not easy to listen when someone's reading, as easy it is when someone's speaking. It's a different thing, but you get the real strength of it by hearing the words directly. If I say things in between, but the real power is in the language of the words, because the language itself is remarkable. If you like English language, I've never read anything compared to these sort of platforms that they're able to create, this mood of respect and honor that we must, show to the transcendentalists. I've never experienced any words compared to the Bhagavatam like this. So it fills my heart with a feeling of honor towards that world just by hearing the verse directly. This is verse 20. He is the protector of prosperity, sacrifice, the citizens, the intelligent, the planets, and the earth. He is the protector and goal to be attained for the Andakas, the Vrishnis and Yadus. These are Krishna's own family members. May the Lord, Master of the devotees, be pleased with me. May Mukunda, next verse, may Mukunda be pleased with me. Purified by meditation on his feet, the wise sages see with their intelligence the truth about Paramatma, and while others speak of him according to their impure intelligence. May the Lord, the best of the sages, be pleased with me. Inspired by him at the beginning of the Kalpa, Saraswati, whose aim is to reveal Krishna, appeared from the mouth of Brahma and revealed proper memory to carry out creation in his heart. So that's, I think, very interesting. That Saraswati appears, and when we understand the creation, it's first that Divya, transcendental Saraswati, revealed to Lord Brahma what the process should be for his meditation. That this Gopal mantra, this 18-syllable Gopal mantra, was first imparted to Lord Brahma. And after meditation on that, it's described for a long period of time. Then Krishna became very pleased. And then the sound of Krishna's flute in the form of the Kambij mantra manifested in Lord Brahma's heart. So that's the process. There's two sound vibrations. The first is coming from Saraswati. This is described in the Brahma Samhita. It's not described in this second canto. In the second canto, it's just described Krishna connecting with Lord Brahma. But in the Brahma Samhita, it describes very clearly how, first of all, it's again this Divya. Divya means eternal Saraswati, was imparting the inspiration for memory in the heart of Lord Brahma, so that he would remember how he had performed previously this creation. This is the commentary. Just as the Lord made the Vedas flow from the mouth of Brahma, may he let the description of his pastimes flow from my mouth. That wish is expressed in this verse, inspired by the Lord. Saraswati, the form of the Vedas, appeared from Brahma's mouth at the beginning of the Kalpa and revealed proper memory in the heart. Saraswati shows Krishna as the object of worship. So there's a verse here in the commentary. It's saying that by the influence of time, the Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke to Brahma, the Vedic knowledge in which bhakti is the essence. So that's a verse from the 11th canto describing that relationship with Saraswati. Saraswati is considered his wife. He has two wives, Gayatri also. So Saraswati is considered Lord Brahma's wife. So now this is verse 23. May the Lord ornament my words by his presence in them, just as he creates the bodies for the living beings with the material elements and dwells in them, but as the Purush, being the life of the 16 elements, enjoys them without being contaminated. So again, in a very submissive way, Sukadeva Goswami is praying for the Lord to come in his heart and speak this truth. I offer respects to the avatar of Vasudeva Vyasadeva, the writer of scriptures, whose lotus mouth nectar topics about Krishna, filled with knowledge that the devotees drink. So now he's offering respects to his glorious father as a Shaktiyavesh avatar. Then he carries on. O king, Brahma, filled with the Vedas, taught this knowledge which the Lord had directly spoke to him, to Narad, who asked about it. So the next chapter is going to go into that conversation between Narad and Brahma. And this is very beautiful. So basically here, what I've read so far today are these prayers by Sukadeva Goswami. And just from hearing these prayers, and of course we need to meditate on them at some length. It's probably more simple when you're just sitting alone and you're just absorbing in them. But the whole mood of them is one of bhakti. The whole mood is one of devotion. So this thread, this mood of devotion, is constantly what is being inspired. And the next chapter, this chapter 5, is about the devotion that Narad demonstrates towards his glorious father. He approaches him in such a beautiful way, and Narad and Lord Brahma, his heart becomes very inspired and excited by Narad's request. And in that mood of inspiration that he received from his glorious son Narad, then he begins, Lord Brahma, to describe this very confidential understanding of creation. So see what is the equation, so to speak, for receiving this knowledge. What is its casing of it? It's all so beautiful. It's all so relishable with sweetness and high respect. So in this mood, we can receive and enter into these transcendental topics. It is like a mood. It's not just, the sun walks in, oh, how are you going, or something like this. It's beautiful language. I'll read a couple of these verses and then we'll stop. It's late already. So this is from this chapter 5 that Prabhupada calls the cause of all causes, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur calls the primary creation, Sarga, because now Lord Brahma is about to speak, and in his speaking he describes different types of meditation first, but again, the same as Sukadeva Goswami, he begins to glorify Krishna, because Narad approaches Lord Brahma and is of the mood that Lord Brahma is actually the supreme controller. Even though Narad knows that he's not, it's revealed, but still he gives him that mood in the conversation. So Lord Brahma has the full license and reason to glorify Krishna as being the supreme controller. Even though Lord Brahma creates the whole universe, but straight away he's acknowledging who is the real controller of this. So again, that mood of submissiveness to the real controller. So this dynamic of Bhakti Devi, this dynamic of devotion, is being expressed just in the language. What to speak of the actual content? Because as I've said, we're not really going into the content. We're just looking at the language here. We're seeing that. So I'm just going to speak a couple of these verses here. Sri Narad Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity. This Bhagavatam, by the way, is beautifully edited. You don't find any mistakes, typos, or nothing in it. It's a real pleasure to read. They actually give you out $5 or whatever if you can find any mistakes in this. They've got some, scheme. It's great because you don't find any mistakes in it. But in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it's packed with mistakes. O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisance unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual and the supersoul. So look, it's taken 3 chapters until this question is going to be answered. Amazing. The sages, they asked it way back, and then we had to go through Sutta Goswami, and then we went through Parikshit, and then Sukadeva Goswami offering all these prayers, and now we're going to go through most of this chapter with Narad and Brahma just conversing with each other before they actually start to answer the question. So all this has great effect on the consciousness, the way that it comes out, the way that it's being presented. It's like a platform to make us eligible to actually realize something of the truth they're about to impart. It's very, very exalted subject matter. It's not something that is just casually, dropping off the pages. There's a whole beautiful, sublime build-up to it. My dear father, please describe, this is Narad again speaking to Brahma, that Sukadeva Goswami is reciting to Parikshit, that Sutta Goswami is reciting to the sages. So it's a conversation within a conversation within a conversation. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically, because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, and whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all the entities with material elements by your personal energy? As a spider very easily creates the network of its cobwebs and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. That's not a question. He's stating that he's thinking that his Father creates without any other's help. Whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior or equal, eternal or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your Lordship. Thou so great. That doesn't really make sense. You are so great, he's saying. Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline. Although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation, so they've seen Lord Brahma performing austerities. Why is he performing austerities if he's the creator? Who is he performing austerities to? Who's that person that he's trying to reach by his austerities? My dear Father, you know everything and you are the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I have inquired from you be kindly instructed to me, so that I may be able to understand it as your student. Okay, we'll stop. It's 9:10. So then Lord Brahma, he starts to speak. The first verse he's saying, my dear boy Narad, being merciful to all, you have asked me all these questions because I have been inspired to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. So straight away, he's bringing Krishna into the center. But it was Krishna who made all this creation. And then he goes into again, a description of the Virata Rupa, and then he goes into the pastimes of the Mahapurushas. So, did you get something from that? So, it's a challenge to try and present it. I think I need to work on it a long time to be able to make it really so it's understood as much as it is. I mean, you can experience something internally while you're reading and studying, then how to actually bring it out so it has the same. But I think just by reading the translations itself, you interpret that individually. But certainly this richness and beauty and sweetness, I think we can all appreciate from this Bhagavatam, and always try to include it at some point in the day, the 24 hours of our lives. Then our lives must be successful. Jai Shri Gurudev ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.